What's up, everybody? Week 4 of the Mob Podcast. I'm your host, Caleb Okachukwu. To my right of me, we got
Marlo Wax.
To my left of me, we got
Jahad Carter.
back in the building.
Yeah, he's back.
Took a break, huh? You back, huh? Feeling all right?
A little quick. He back.
I thought he tried to leave, you know what I'm saying?
You scared the people a little bit,
Yeah,
huh?
they asking about you.
You can't be
Feeling
doing
good,
that,
though?
bro.
Everything good with you?
Yeah, everything good.
All right, bet. So, how y'all boys feeling, man? You know, we woke up 5-0 this morning.
History. History.
Right? And the AP, not the coaches. Last week I said coaches, but it's AP this week. So,
They showed me some love, though. I was on the little picture.
yeah.
What you was throwing up with your hands?
Yeah.
Bro? What you was doing?
What you-
That was for the 4, but I guess they put on there because it was 44.
I didn't think about that. I didn't even peep that though.
Yeah.
Okay, Hobby, my hobby. Yeah, you gotta watch our hobby in there. Don't apply in this little.
Trying to get more though. We rank, but we
For
trying,
sure.
Trying to get more though. We ain't satisfied with that.
Not at all. Again, like kind of like what I said last week, Lo. Right? I think, for us, we're 5-0 right now, but I just think the hunger just builds that much more.
Oh yeah.
For everybody, I could just see it, and like just how we practice and the way we play. It's like it's a blessing to be 5-0 first, but at the same time, it's like we're just so hungry to keep it going, honestly. And just going into the game, obviously, we did what we were supposed to do. We handled business, kind of like Coach White was saying, like, let's go out there and just handle business. We didn't overlook them or anything like that. We just did what we were supposed to do. That's what I saw. So just for you guys, because I think, it's easy to talk about our preparation, but how do you guys deal with preparing for a team that you're supposed to win against, but it's like, what's your approach like for last week?
Yeah, so I feel like the coaches, they told us all week that we gotta treat them like they're any other team in the conference because they really can. We seen it early in the season. Teams losing to teams that they're supposed to beat.
Yeah.
So we know we didn't
All
want
the time.
Yeah, we know we ain't want to be that. We ain't want to be one of them teams, the laughing stock of the nation, because people have been talking about them losses all week.
Yeah.
We're gonna be talking about them the rest of the year. So we know we had to prepare, get ready, and just treat them like just like everybody else.
No, for sure. What about you, Hot?
Preparing for them, like, they had players that were good, so
Facts.
it was like you loaf on a play, like that can, turn
Expose
into
you.
something big. So, just going into that, like with the mindset, like, we don't, no touchdowns giving up, like nothing. Like, so just having that, hungry mindset, like going into that game, like no matter who is in front of us, like no matter who it is, like just going to that game, we're going to give it all every time.
No, for sure. And I think, what you guys saying is so real because, obviously for me, I just tried to just not think about, I think, games like this, as a college athlete, it's easy to be like, I'm going to do what I want to do. But, you go into it like, okay, I want to try to get some stats, but I've learned over time to treat everything the same. So I do things like I tell myself, it's coming.
Yeah.
Like it's coming. It's coming. Like it's going to come. And I think when you have that mindset, no matter who you playing, because we don't care what color coming to the dome.
If they in that dome, they across from us.
Anybody can get it.
Yeah.
You feel me? So, and
Adrian Broner, any man can get it.
yeah, I mean, like, mad time. That's mad
Any
time.
man can get
That's
it.
mad time. So just going into the game, what was some top moments for you guys? Obviously, a lot of people got in this week. So what was just some things that y'all remember from the game?
For me, it was just I feel like us, since we are a little bit like the older cats, just to see the young bucks getting there, like the walk-ons, like my boy like Ryan Dolan.
Hey,
people
shout
like
out to
them,
Dolan,
like
man.
just see them go in and just get that opportunity to play in front of the dome so their dream can really come true. Get a snap in college football, get their first tackle and all that. That made me happy because them boys work hard just like us. They in practice with us every day. Summer runs, them boys grinding with us.
That's what people don't know.
Yeah, I was happy. I was happy for them
that.
for them to get the opportunity that we get to have every Saturday.
Piggybacking on what Lo said, like, like seeing not just people in my position group, but, and like Dolan and, like Yo and like people like that, like getting in and actually getting a chance to, show what they can do. Like, somebody that is in my room, like Malcolm and like Braylon.
Young
Mob,
Mob.
B.O.
Yeah. B.O., yeah.
Everything B.O.
Great.
been through for him to really get some smoke. Oh, yeah.
Got in there 2 tackles back to back.
Pull it up.
I was in there with him. Hey, it was one play. He came down here. I said, "Oh yeah, B.O." He said, I got you, twin. You know how B.O. talk. I was like, all right, shout out to B.O., man.
For sure.
What y'all saying is definitely dope. I think for me, you guys know I'm the oldest in my room, so seeing my young bulls going to game, you know, young Francois Knowlton. That's like my little brother for real. So
Young Kevin.
Y'all look like.
chill, guys. Yo, y'all ain't gonna keep coming
You
up
said
here
they
every
look
week.
like-
Y'all ain't gonna keep coming up here every week and trying me like this, like the whole world.
That's your little brother though.
That
Y'all,
is, man.
y'all
Time.
look alike.
Chill, yo, gang. I'm handsome. And but nah, though, you know, shout out to young Francois Knowlton, Kevin Jobity,
Yeah, Kevin.
Kevin,
Benzo.
play.
Yeah,
Kevin got in.
and that's one person he ain't been playing football that long.
He started his senior year. They
Yes.
said
So for him to be picking it up this quick and making plays, that's lit.
And just to, sorry, Kev, but it's a little story. The whole game, Kevin on the sideline like doing high knees.
For what?
I'm looking at him like, you all right? What you doing? He's like, I'm telling you, bro, when I get in, I'm going to make plays. I said, all right, man, show me something. I said, all right, show me something. So he on the sideline doing high knees. He going to first play, TFL. I'm like, all right. I was laughing because I'm like, he wasn't lying to me. Like, he was just so ready and so focused. And like I was just saying, I think, even for me, like I kind of wanted to just do what we had to do early so we could just get out there and let everybody else play. Because what you were saying about Dolan, people don't know that, right? Like when you're a walk-on, it's like they come to 6:30 meetings with us. They practice hard, and they know like it's a high chance that they probably won't play.
Yeah.
So it's like to have that kind of mindset, you know, it's just like you really got to be mentally tough. So I think for me, just seeing everybody get a chance to get in and, you know, to get what they've earned was dope for real. All right, so guys, y'all know we 5-0 now, and I think they're saying that we're 5-0 since the last time we did was 1987.
35 years ago?
35?
That's crazy.
It's a long time.
That's a very long time. I think the team that was from 1987, they went undefeated that season, right? Yeah, so it's actually crazy because, you know, we got a legend in the building today.
Yes,
You know, his resume speaks for itself. He actually was a starting quarterback for the 1987 undefeated team. And that's Don McPherson. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm doing better because y'all won. So,
you know, first we just appreciate you just coming on the podcast and you know, just spending time with us. You know, up until this point, you know, we've had so many special people just come back and just talk to us, and you know, we had Coach Boeheim tell us stories, and I'm not gonna lie to you though. You know, I did my homework. Like last night, I was watching some highlights of that team. You guys were legit. Like, just for starters, can you just talk about just the mindset going into that season, the togetherness of the team? Like, what was you guys' mindset and focus for that year?
we had a lot of fifth-year guys and who had been together for a while, and we felt like we underachieved for 4 years.
The previous year.
Yeah, we were 5-6 the year before. We had pretty much everyone coming back for that last year, minus a couple of guys. But the defense, we had, our secondary, we had started together for a year. We had young guys on the O-line, but we took a pledge to be alcohol-free prior to that season. We were 5-6 the year before.
Okay.
And it went, yeah, right? Can you imagine? And it wasn't like we had.
That's real.
We had everybody was legal to drink in those years. You were 18 years old, so it wasn't like we had guys underage drinking and sneaking around. It was just our culture. We had a bar on campus. We used to give a free keg to the football team on Wednesday nights. That bar doesn't exist anymore, right?
Long gone.
So we had a lot of guys.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah, we had a lot of guys whose priorities were just not right, and then we got them right. And it wasn't 100%, but I always say this, and I talk about this all the time. I talked about it last night with some students, that it forced us to care about each other differently, right? It forced us to get closer with each other. And that was the thing, that team, we're still on there's 20 or 30 of us that text on a regular basis.
Yeah, brothers.
And that was 30, yeah, exactly, brothers, right? And we've buried each other, we've married each other off, we got kids named after each other, all that stuff. And so that was, if you said anything about that team, I would tell you that was the first thing, that we really did care about each other and had fun. Yeah, we had, George DeLeon, who's our offensive coordinator, just passed away early this year. When I talked to him right before, probably about 2 months before he passed, and he said the thing that he remembered is how much fun we had preparing, how much fun we had in practice, and how much we loved getting ready for. We were a little different than back then. I called a lot of my own plays. Right.
For real?
So, it was a little different. We had a lot more. I don't know. I guess we had a lot more freedom. To run the offense the way we want to run. But I will tell you right now, I got a lot of credit. People said I was, should have been the best player in the country, the Heisman Trophy. I wasn't the best player in my own huddle. I'm telling the truth, I was not. Darryl Johnston was in that huddle. Tommy Kane was in that huddle. John Flannery was in that huddle, offensive lineman. I mean, we had some Robert Drummond. Wow. I don't know if y'all know Robert Drummond. He still lives here in Syracuse. He was like MVP to CFL like 3 or 4 years. Okay. He was a baller. Yeah, and so we had guys on all. Rob Moore, who played in the NFL for a number of years. We had some balls. And you know what? Our defense was better than the offense. Really? No joke. Our defense was.
I was scoring a lot of points on offense.
Yeah, I was about to say.
But you know what? The defense was giving us the ball.
Facts.
That's facts.
So I got a question. What was the go-to play? Like, who was you going to when you needed a play to be made?
Yeah.
Man, I will honestly say one of the best runs I've ever been a part of was Darryl Johnston against West Virginia. He dragged some of my offensive linemen into the end zone. Rob Moore, Rob Moore was our second string wide receiver. Mm-hmm. And he would come in the game. He had probably, I think, 2 of the longest pass plays of the year. And then Deval Glover was the starter, but Deval was solid. I can't even tell you we had to go to.
Okay.
You said it was more free, so was that a trust thing or just?
We were doing stuff that nobody else was doing because we had the personnel to do it. Yeah. And offenses at the time were kind of predictable. We were pretty much running 3 different offenses that we stole from other people. Mm-hmm. We stole some of Miami's pass game. We stole this whole package from Tennessee where they flex the tight end, and so if they walk the wide and the linebacker out, we do different things differently. And then we were running the freeze option off the main line, so we can come to the line of scrimmage, and I can put 5 guys out in the pattern, or we can run trap option into the boundary. Yeah. Right, so it was like we were just tough because we can come to the line of scrimmage and do so much, and because I had the freedom to do it, we would just have packages like I just sometimes go in the huddle and just say check with me, and go to the line of scrimmage and call it.
Yeah. Coach trusted you.
They had to be together and locked in.
To have that kind of trust. I don't know we did that now.
Y'all think Shredder can do that?
Hey, I don't know.
Now nobody in college football does that anymore.
I don't think nobody.
Nobody. Yeah, I'll be holding up signs, going to the sideline. Pictures of Madonna and Rihanna. Like, what the hell is that?
Yeah, we can't do all that. Not at all.
Nah, that's dope. All right, so just taking it all the way back real quick. You grew up, you were born in Brooklyn?
Born in Brooklyn, raised on Long Island.
Oh, okay. Yep. So you were like, was it a dream to go to Syracuse? Like, was it?
You know what? I had 2 brothers. One was ranked 2nd in the world as a middleweight fighter. And while I was here, and the other one while I was
That's
here
a good bloodline right there.
Yeah, my other brother was playing for the Chargers in San Diego. And in college, he went to the University of New Haven, Division III. He was the first player drafted in New Haven into the NFL. And I remember him sending me, I don't know, I guess it was probably his sophomore year at New Haven in 1979. He sent me an article from in the regular mail, right, from Sports Illustrated that said it was a small article. Syracuse University is building a dome. And my brother was like, can you imagine that? He played in a baseball stadium. His college football played in a baseball stadium, Quigley Field in New Haven. And I used to go up there like a little kid, right? He said, Syracuse is building a dome. I had no idea what that even meant, right? Yeah. And then 2 years later, George O'Leary was calling me up and saying, hey, we want you to come to Syracuse. I'm like, for real? Like, I didn't even think about it. Yeah. And it wasn't, it's hard to compare that time to this time. ESPN didn't exist.
I was about to say,
that's facts though.
Forget about
Twitter,
media,
Instagram,
right, all that stuff.
Yeah,
you couldn't. Like I said, my brother wrote me a letter. Yeah. He put a cut out an article from a magazine and put it in an envelope and put it in the mailbox. Yeah, right. That's how I found out about the dome.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So how did you know about like top players in the country? Like because you guys didn't have media, or y'all didn't even really have phone. Y'all had,
like phone?
No phone?
Phone? The phone was attached to a wall with a cord.
So y'all really had to get it out the mud.
No, but see, and this is what I say about historically about athletes and things like you said, top athletes. You had to be a baller back in the day. You had to be consistent. Like right now you can have a breakout game and ESPN will highlight you and pub you up.
Yeah,
right? And you can post it and all of a sudden you look like a winner, right? Back in the day, you really had to perform week in and week out to get that attention. And by my senior year, we were. you know, I mean, that was the whole thing about the Heisman. And by the way, this still exists. Like, people go to bed at 10 o'clock at night and don't watch West Coast games, right? That existed back then too. Like, if you were a Northeast reporter, you only saw Northeast football if you were lucky, right? But there was only one game on a weekend, or maybe 2 games on a weekend. There was no Thursday night games and Wednesday, Tuesday night games.
They ain't do that back then.
They did that.
So
Right.
go ahead.
So back to, like you said, Long Island, Brooklyn, New York. So was it? Let's get a little more insight. Was it always football, or was you like an athlete? Did you play different sports? How was that coming up?
I was a high jumper. I was state champion in high jump, and a hurdler in track.
Okay.
He
did a lot.
He did everything.
He did a lot.
Yeah,
he did everything.
I wanted to run track here, but they wouldn't let me because my old coach Mac, he wanted me because he said, "You're a quarterback. You have to be studying all winter long." So.
That's fat. You was calling your own plays, so
I had
I'm about to say it's calling his own.
had to be locked in.
Yeah,
that's loud.
You know, you were talking about just the mindset of the team and the togetherness that you guys had. Like, where did that come from? Was it you were just tired of losing, or it was just like, nah, like I think, guys, it's time for us to make a change? And how did you get guys to listen to you?
Good question. And a couple of things about what's different now is most of the guys that, like, I played, my next door neighbor was John Garrett. He was our center. I played a high school all-star game against John. His roommate was a guy named Tom Watson. Tom Watson was won one of the awards on Long Island, where I was from, as Player of the Year. So we kind of knew each other. We all grew up in and around each other. And the other thing, because we were so many guys were so close, we didn't recruit nationally like y'all do now. And so our families knew each other. And our families would come in, and we had a family section in the dome, right? So they all kind of knew each other. So we did have a good family environment. Our old coach Mac, you know, a lot of his coaches had been with him a long time. He was a New England guy. He was a Maine guy, and so we had a lot of coaches even who spent a lot of time together. And their families knew each other. Right? 2 of my coaches' kids got married at one point. They didn't last very long, but they got married. But you know, we had a lot of those things happen, and so there was a sense of you're gonna let your boys down if you don't get this right. Yeah. And so when we made that pledge to be alcohol-free, the guy who really, in my opinion, was the one who made it work was the guy who was the biggest partier, was a guy named Pat Kelly, because he was the one who said, "I'm down with this, right? Let's change things." And I always say, and I say this in all the lectures and everything I do, is that we learn to love each other differently, right? Loving each other didn't mean watching each other do stupid things and laugh about the next day, right? And loving each other meant asking more for each other, more from each other and for each other. And that's why we were better.
Yeah, so this the you gotta be real with us. It's the Mob podcast. So was it anybody that broke the rule?
Oh yeah, it's plenty.
So how y'all? You gotta let us know how y'all handle that.
So because this is what happened. So because we started winning, right? It was in USA Today that we were doing this, and I was quoted. And Tim Brown, who was at Notre Dame, told me that Lou Holtz showed the team, "Look what Syracuse is doing." Right? So there was pressure on us to get it right. So the couple of guys, I'm not going to name names, but there's one guy, really well-known, famous guy who does announcing on Fox. Right? He and a couple of other guys, his boys, they all went out like the night we did it. And here's what they did, though. There's a dollar bill out there somewhere. I don't know if they've ever found it, but they went into a bar and they had some beers, right, the night we decided we were alcohol-free. And they wrote on the dollar bill 11-0.
Oh. So that's somewhere.
And it was that dollar bill's out there somewhere.
Before the season started. And then once we started winning, I mean, nobody wanted to get caught, right? Nobody wanted to be that guy, right? So everything toned down. And that guy, Pat Kelly, I talk about this all the time. We weren't really close friends until that year. And he said to me, "Don, what do you do?" Because I never went out. I didn't go out on Marshall Street and go to the bars and all that kind of stuff. He said,
Marshall Street still was a thing.
It was back then. Marshall Street was back then,
too. Marshall Street was off the hook back then. Not like it is now.
Oh, it's still a thing.
Yeah, there was a bunch of bars.
So y'all was over there. What's the pizza spot on Marshall Street? On Marshall Street?
Varsity?
Varsity.
No, Varsity was just pizza. Right? Pizza and wings. No, there were a bunch of other bars there. We had a bar. See, now you're gonna get me in trouble, right? There was a bar on campus that used to give the football team a free keg on every Wednesday night. So when I got here, that was the thing. That was one of the things we got rid of. We were like, this is not good. As a quarterback, when you go into the huddle in practice and you smell booze, you know guys are tired, you know guys are hungover, right? And so that's why we were 5 and 6. That's why we were underachieving, because guys were partying more than they were preparing. And so we got rid of that, and it became a cultural thing. Like, you could not. Yeah, you can go out but you can't go out and get messed up. You can't go out and get, because you know you're gonna. Yeah, we're gonna call you out on it the next day. And once we started winning, it was like that was the pressure.
Let's keep it going.
That was the pressure.
It's crazy that you mentioned the Wednesday night. So our equipment manager, I think he still was there. Our equipment manager, Jimmy.
Yeah.
He told me about how y'all used to go out on Wednesday nights, kind of practice.
Yeah.
Like, so that's really true right there. Jimmy really told me that.
Jimmy been around for a minute.
Yeah, I think 50 years.
Yeah.
He said.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man. Going out on Wednesday night, I can't do that.
Yeah.
I don't know how they did that.
I don't go out.
I couldn't do that though.
Wednesday and Thursday.
Okay.
So I mean, I get the bigger purpose for like the non-alcohol, but like, was there a reason why it was alcohol? Was like, do you feel like it was?
It was because it was such a part of the culture on our team. Like, it was
heavy drinkers.
Yeah, not just heavy drinkers, but like when I got to the NFL, the Philadelphia Eagles, there was a keg on tap in the locker room. Right, it was a different time. I played with guys who smoked cigarettes at halftime. Right,
Yo, what?
it was. What? So, oh yeah, I know. And I will say this: there's so much that has changed in ways that you can criticize how the change has been, but the health of y'all. Like, we didn't have water breaks. Like, we had water, but we had like a concerted water break. Like, okay, now we're all gonna go get water. You could just go get water. Practice, right? We had 2 days. We practiced twice a day.
Ooh, Lord, I ain't gonna lie. I don't know.
There's a lot of things in that regard that have changed dramatically for the better.
Yeah.
For the better.
Yeah. So let's just speed up a little bit, talking about like throughout the season and stuff. Was it? I hear you talking about the preparation and all that with the coaches. So when was that game? When was that moment where y'all really felt like we really can do this? Like, we really can go 11-0.
Yeah.
Like,
facts.
we really can be something right now.
So our first few games, we played Rutgers and Maryland, and I can't remember who else we played early in the season.
Y'all beat up on Maryland.
We beat up on Maryland. We beat up on everybody.
Hold on.
Everybody.
Y'all was the mob back then.
I know your pops. I know, right? but we played Penn State. Syracuse hadn't beat Penn State in about 16, 17 years. And they were the defending national champs. And we had a week off before, just like y'all right now. We were 5-0, had a week off, and we were playing. It's very similar.
Let's know that.
Very similar.
Hey, hold on, I gotta get $1 bill. Hold on.
That's right. And we had Penn State coming in town. All of a sudden, we were in that 2 weeks span like y'all have right now. Right. Everyone got really excited about it. So there were parades, and there was a song about us, and there was a song about me, and all of a sudden,
you remember the song?
I'm not gonna tell you.
That's an off-camera.
Yeah, no, it was a silly song. Yeah. It was a silly song, but it was cool. It was cool. And then we CBS was coming into town, and first play of the game, it was you had to go-to play, right? It was this run pass. It was a fake option. And a Rob Moore on the post.
That might be, some people might not understand that, but I
yeah,
they'll figure it out.
They'll figure it out. I did this, right? and it was an 80-yard touchdown pass first play of the game. Again, on national television. And by the way, this was when like national television meant it wasn't. It was the game. Right? It was CBS. Brent Musburger, who y'all might know, not remember, but it would be like the number one. Herb Street and what's his name?
Yeah.
And so, first play of the game, we go 80 yards, and the noise in the dome was incredible, and we were beating the defending national champs 41-0 with 8 minutes left in the third quarter. Dang. So when you asked, was there a moment? It was that moment. It was that moment when we were up 41-0 in the third quarter, and we took our starters out against the defending national champs that we hadn't beaten in 17 years.
That's crazy.
We were just that was a mic drop moment for us, and we just knew from there.
Oh yeah,
if we lose a game, it's on us.
Yeah, they know.
What was that week of practice like? Y'all knew like
we knew, we knew we got cocky. Y'all cocky too, right?
It's okay sometimes.
Yeah,
okay.
We got cocky, and we knew that if we did our job, we can beat anybody.
Mob mentality. That's the mob
mentality.
The mob mentality. Sound like the mob back then. Y'all was mobbing back then. That's what it sounded like.
Yeah.
If we do us,
that's right.
Dang. And I think just hearing that is so dope. But just talking about a little bit about yourself. Everybody knows that during that season. You were killing it, and a lot of people say that you should have won the Heisman that year. Yeah. Just was that a goal of yours? You know, going into that season, like did you have it written down, or like did you just, you know, you just wanted to win?
So when I was in high school, I was a sophomore in high school. I transferred to a high school, and a lot of my teammates, a lot of drinking going on, stuff like that.
High school too?
High school, oh yeah.
Sheesh. It was just that era was just y'all just love alcohol.
Yeah. So I remember telling all my friends in high school, I'm not gonna have a beer until I win the Heisman Trophy. I told that to my friends in high school. I never said that here. And I will tell you what I said, and I'll say it again. I say it over and over. People want to say I should have won the Heisman and blah, blah, blah. First of all, the Heisman is not the true best player in the country. It's not. If you look at the Heisman right now, there's two players from the same team. Come on. Are y'all paying attention to what's going on in college football? And there's more than just running backs and quarterbacks playing college football. Yeah. If you truly know the game, you know there's some badass offensive linemen out there. There's badass defensive backs and linebackers, right? Sure. And defensive linemen who do their job and are football players. Not popular, they're football players, right? Yeah. So, and that's why I say I wasn't the best player in my huddle, because I wasn't. I was not a better football. I was not a better quarterback than Darryl Johnston was a fullback. I wasn't a better quarterback than John Flannery was a left guard, right? So this is a game. This is a team game. Yeah. And you can't be, there's no such thing as the best player in college football. There's no such thing, because you can't be your best player unless your boys are doing their job.
That's a great perspective to think. I ain't never really think of it like that.
You can't. It's almost antithetical to the game. There's no other team sport like ours. Yeah. You go on the field sometimes with a guy who's 300 pounds and a guy who's 185 pounds in the same huddle.
That's real.
I love the way he doing that. Like just giving love to everybody whole team around you, everybody around selfish. You. Where'd you get that from? Was that your fan, your mom? Your
you know what? I don't think it's. I think if you talk to players, I think y'all would say the same thing.
Oh no, yeah.
You would say the same thing about me, right? It's just that people want to, like with me, especially here in Syracuse, people want to put me up on this pedestal. Like I was the reason all that stuff happened. Nah, man. If you know the facts,
it's everybody in that building.
Everybody in that building, right? And so I feel like I have to be almost evangelical about that. That's real. Because otherwise, I'm doing y'all a disservice, right? And letting Garrett think that he's the man. He's the man, right? Yeah. But he's not the man unless his own line is doing their job. He's not the man unless his receivers are getting open. He's not the man unless Sean is making things easier for him, right? And he's not the man unless the defense is giving him the ball in good situations.
Facts.
So you got to keep those things in perspective, because that's how teams win.
How do you battle that though? Because obviously, our era is different from your era. Yeah. We got a lot more distractions.
Y'all got a lot more.
You know, just being honest, I think in today's society, it's like, I know, like, for me personally, I love the game so much, but it's like with social media, Twitter, Instagram, the newspaper, it's like all you're doing is comparing yourself subconsciously, right? So it's like, what would you say to us today to get to, like, your type of team?
I appreciate that question, because it is one of the things that frustrates me about between NIL, transfer portal. And I've said this about y'all, and I've been asked a couple times, what's impressed you about this team? And I said, first of all, y'all don't care what anybody thinks, because if you care what everybody thinks, you'd be 0-5, right?
So that's facts.
Number one. Number two, in this era of transfer and NIL, to your point, y'all have come together as a team really quick this year. And it shows. And that's impressive, because you've seen it in other teams around the country where even I think, one of the coaches, Nick Saban, was saying you see a lot of teams playing like a bunch of individuals and not playing as a team. And I think that's harder to do nowadays because of everything you're talking about. I think y'all need to be intentional and deliberate. I keep saying this about a lot of things in our culture right now, because if you're not intentional and deliberate about a lot of things, there's so many distractions and so many different perspectives that you all have to be really intentional and deliberate about working against all those things, and find time and find space to, like I said before, love each other, to do things for each other and with each other in ways that get you away from all the distractions and all the noise, so that you can really appreciate each other. Because that's what happens when you're on the field, right? When you start to appreciate how your brother's, how he's handling his business, right? And you can see that look on his face. Oh man, I got to help out a little bit in this regard, right? So, and when you get to know each other in those ways, that's when that stuff shows up on the field.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right, so, I got to ask, because, off camera we were talking a little bit, and I just got to know. So, you lived on South Campus just like we did.
Yes.
And, I asked you, if it is any different from 1987 to 2022, and you said it looks the exact
It's the same buildings, yeah.
Just painted differently.
Yeah, just painted a little bit
So
different.
no AC.
Oh, no AC.
Y'all two don't know about that.
Nah,
Y'all two don't
Y'all have AC?
I was the last class
Oh, you.
to came in with that led on South through a camp. Those hot
Yeah.
summers on South,
Yep.
no AC.
Yep.
I still had my fan. I'd be sweating in my sleep.
Right.
Like it was.
Right.
I used
You
to
know
be
what we did
boiling.
during training camp? We stayed in Shaw Hall,
Oh really?
and we weren't allowed to have cars. So we walked back and forth to Manly during tour days in the heat in the summer. During tour days, we had to walk from Shaw Hall to Manly. The only way you could drive first of all, we didn't have cars. We weren't allowed to have a car during camp. So we had to walk from Shaw Hall to Manly.
I might see why everybody was drinking so much.
That's crazy.
I see why everybody was. You know
And
what I'm saying?
you would see guys who had to go to like therapy, so they would have ice bags on. You would see guys walking with ice bags on, sometimes crutches, right, back and forth for 2 days.
That's like a 30-minute walk, right?
Nah, it's not 30 minutes. It's really like 10 minutes.
It's like 12 minutes.
It's like,
Nah.
it's not 30 minute walk.
That's like a 30-minute walk, man.
No, it's like 10 minutes. It's like a 10-minute walk. But some guys would just stay at Manly and sleep in Manly because they didn't want to walk back to Shaw.
You know what kind of focus you gotta have?
Yeah, that's crazy.
No. Like,
You think
Nah, but
you think you can do that now?
We didn't have
no, I couldn't do that now.
but we didn't have the distractions y'all had. We didn't have phones and the internet.
That's
and all that
facts,
kind
though,
of stuff.
yeah.
So we didn't have those kind of distractions that y'all had.
All right, so just for you and obviously that 11-0 season, everybody saw how you were playing, Heisman runner-up. So was then like goal for you going to the NFL, or like what was your next steps when you were having the season that you were having?
It wasn't, and to be honest, back then, I would say that I wasn't a quarterback. I was a black quarterback. So here I was. I led the nation in passing, took a team to undefeated, all that stuff, and I got 2 NFL workouts. And so prior to the draft, I wrote a letter. IMG was my agent, a guy named Peter Johnson at the time. I wrote a letter on IMG letterhead and sent it to every GM in the NFL. There's 28 teams at the time, telling them if they weren't going to play me at quarterback, do not draft me.
Wow.
So I'm gonna let you finish. I got a strong question for
Wow.
you.
Yeah, and so I even got a call from a coach,
That's bold, man.
a guy named Sam White, who was coaching the Bengals at the time, and they had either they just went to the Super Bowl or they went to the Super Bowl that year, and Boomer Esiason, who played at Maryland, was from Long Island, was their quarterback. And Sam White called me first day of the draft and said, "Hey, we got your letter, and what if you're not starting, right?" And he said, "Would you play another position?" I said, "You got my letter, right?" Yeah. I said, "No." I said, "I think I'm better than the guy you got, and if you don't want somebody cocky like that, don't draft me. I'm cool."
Wow, yeah.
So I got a question, and I know you're gonna like this question. So how did you feel about with the whole like Lamar Jackson thing? Like when he got drafted, you should switch your position. Like how did that make you feel? Because that was something that you like went through.
Yeah, it's the same old story. Like I said, I was a black quarterback, right? That narrative still exists, and there's still a tremendous amount of bias in how black men are perceived in a lot of different ways, as leaders, as thinkers, and so that and football. You're gonna get me on my little soapbox, but like the whole NIL thing even is, to me, is the worst thing that happened to black football players and basketball players in the history of our game, because what it says is that we don't care if you get an education anymore. And yes, do I think y'all should be compensated? I do, but because there's a lot of money out there, but I think it should be attached to your education. Right, and I think if people start saying that what's your brand? Well, your brand is in the classroom. Your brand is not on the field, because there's going to be a shelf life. I'm not an old man. I feel old, right? But I'm not an old man, and it's my education in my classroom from Syracuse University that's carried me throughout my life, not the game. Right. It's easy to talk about the game and to say all these, but trust me, what I did 35 years ago is not put money in my bank account right now. I still got to go to work every day.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's the classroom.
I see you talk about. I heard you talk about how they see black quarterbacks as thinkers and things like that. Little do they know, they can say what they want about you being black quarterback, and you not being a great thinker. You was calling your own plays.
Yeah, exactly.
On an undefeated team, he
Yeah.
really was doing it. So all that not wanting you to play quarterback, that's wrong. That's messed up.
And then back then it was blatant.
Mm-hmm.
When I got to the NFL, there were only 6 black quarterbacks in the league, and on 4 teams. because it was Warren Moon and Reggie Slack. Well, Slack came out a year after me. But I was in Philly. I backed up 2 black quarterbacks in the NFL, Randall Cunningham and Warren Moon.
Okay.
Right? So it wasn't like there was a lot of opportunities, and it was very few opportunities to be a backup black quarterback. And that's why one of the things I said at the time is that when you see real progress is when you see backups. Because the backups a backup quarterback in the NFL is the greatest job in the history of the planet. You get paid well.
Think about it, though, yeah.
You don't play.
You chilling. You chilling.
You don't. You can skip out of the facility on Sunday night. Right?
Go to bed. You
go to bed. Oh, that's right.
Night before the game, I ain't playing
and by the way, during the week in practice, you get like 3 reps.
That's what I was about to say. And you're not getting hit.
And you're not getting hit, right? And you're getting paid well. The backup
quarterback
in the NFL is
you
one of
getting
the
paid
greatest.
well.
Yeah.
like the backup running backs, they getting hit.
Yeah,
like a linebacker, they getting tackled.
Yeah.
They get.
Like
Quarterbacks, you chilling.
Headset on.
Yeah.
on the plays.
QBs with the headset on, right? Exactly.
You chilling.
So, you said something that really just hit home. You said you wrote a letter to all the GMs saying that if you're not drafting me at quarterback, don't take me. So you were ready to just give up your football dreams. Like what went into that mindset?
I'm so without getting too deep into it. Yeah. And I could not, I went through the same thing coming out of high school. I used to challenge. I challenged all the high school recruiters. There's a famous story. It's too long to tell about being recruited at Penn State, and same thing. I was asking schools, when was the last time your school had a black quarterback? And it was rooted in racism. It was rooted in a blatant racism. We're not going to let this black guy represent our institution, right? The quarterback is the face of the institution, right? Like the NCAA always says about athletics is the front porch of the school. Well, it's the same thing true about cities. Like you used to think about, if you thought about San Francisco, you thought about Joe Montana, you thought about Miami, you thought about Dan Marino, right? The quarterback was a symbol of the city, and so there was a lot of underlying issues there. That for me, if I felt like if I changed my position, I was selling out. Wow. And I was selling out a lot of younger guys, and there were a few guys ahead of me, like Doug Williams and James Harris and Joe Gilliam and a couple other guys ahead of me, and Willie Throwaway going back in the day, including a guy named Wilma Sadat Singh, who y'all should know played here in 1938. Came to Maryland. He was a black quarterback. He was played quarterback before the position was called quarterback here at Syracuse. And in 1938 went to play Maryland, and as to not offend the Jim Crow South, he didn't play in the game at Maryland in 1938. And he died a Tuskegee Airman. He was a Renaissance man. He was an amazing, and he played at Syracuse and Grantland Rice, who's one of the founders of the National Football Foundation, wrote about him after he beat Cornell throwing the ball, and compared him to Sammy Baugh and Sid Luckman, the great pro quarterbacks of that era. Yeah. And so here was this black guy who people didn't know about, who was a quarterback. We had a black quarterback at Syracuse every decade except the 60s, since the 30s.
That's tough.
And so there was a reality to it, and as I got better and I progressed through high school, I was very aware of it. I was born in 1965, so I was very aware of the civil rights movement. I was very aware of the intersection of race and sport. And so, yeah, I was ready to give it up because I wasn't going to. First of all, here's the other part. Like I can talk like I'm talking now on the social justice level, but the reality is I can't catch. I ain't hitting nobody.
Yeah,
so they wanted me to do other things. And I was saying, like, if you want a wide receiver, we got some here. Yeah. They're better than me. Right?
Yeah, so it was like, I ain't even play that. Yeah.
I'm not even doing right. I haven't done that. And so what they were asking me to do was a setup, right? Because I can't do those things, and I'm not going to do those things. And so that was the other part of it. Was like, to do what? You might as well just tell me now you don't want me on your team, and I'll go away.
It's so crazy hearing stories like that because, like we hear all the time, like guys like Michael Vick paved the way for Lamar, but it's people like you who like you don't even hear these kind of stories. I just think that you're somebody that really paved the way for a lot of people to really
people like Lamar,
like Lamar.
Lamar did the same thing. I'm not playing a quarterback.
Yeah,
the same thing.
And you wouldn't even hear stories like the people. I never even knew this story like until right now.
Aveda Stone played here in the 50s, 40s. Bernie Custis. Bernie Custis played football here, played quarterback here. Actually, he had the same kind of path. I followed his path 30 years later. Went and played in the Canadian Football League because the NFL didn't want a black quarterback. And so Bernie played here and then went to And so we've had, I mean, you know, Syracuse had a black Heisman Trophy winner before the SEC had a black player.
Damn.
So we have been, you know, a very progressive campus in that regard.
Sure,
and so we've had opportunities for guys to be quarterbacks here, but there was no opportunity beyond that. So you never heard of them.
Right.
And so it wasn't until guys like Willie Thrower and like Bernie Custis was the first black quarterback to play a professional league, but play professional football, but it was in Canada.
Yeah.
And so there was a bunch of guys, and there's a couple of people like Rick Burton on campus and Scott Petoniak and Kip Conweiser, all Syracuse alums, and we're trying to produce a film about Wilma Sadat Singh and that legacy of black quarterbacks at Syracuse.
Wow. I think, again, like just hearing that it's just so dope and crazy, right? But I just wanted to ask you, so when you made that decision up in your mind, like if they didn't want to take you at quarterback, you weren't going to play, what were you going to do? Like what was going to be next for you?
I don't remember.
I'm saying because I'm like.
That's a
like,
big decision.
You know what I mean? Because like people ask us that all the time. And what's our answer? Like we going, we want to, we want to go.
And you know what? Eventually, it has to be, and this is why I said that why NIL is probably the worst thing, because when you're just chasing money or you're chasing, an NIL deal or just the opportunity to play through the transfer portal, what you're forgetting is this is Syracuse University, right? And if you miss that opportunity to recognize that your fellow alums, like I just emceed our alumni awards a couple nights ago here on Friday night.
Wow.
And the CEO of JetBlue Airlines is a woman who graduated from Syracuse, right?
CEO of JetBlue Airlines.
Yeah, right. And so exactly, right?
Right. JetBlue.
The guy who started Discover, the guy who does the Discover Network.
Dang.
Bob
I got
Myron.
Discover.
Yeah, you got Discover, right? I mean, so when you start recognizing that there's so many riches here as an institution, and every year I've emceed this award ceremony for the last few years, realize the people that have graduated from here, and that are your classmates, right? Are your brethren, and the President of the United States, Joe Biden. I was with him at an event several years ago, and someone said, "Oh, he was vice president at the time." Said, "Oh, you met the vice president?" And I went, "Joe." Because Joe's my boy.
Joe?
Because Joe is Joe. Because Joe would come back here, and he'll wear the Beat Duke T-shirt on, right? And when he was vice president, and I would see him at different things, and the first thing he would say to me was, he would start talking about Syracuse, right? And so when you ask me what I would have done, is what it took me a long time to eventually do was come back to this place, and just engage in the institution and all the academic riches and all the other riches that this place provides. And I think if we just focus, like if someone says, "What are you going to do?" That's like asking, any other student on campus, "What are you going to do when you graduate?" I'm going to get a job, right? I'm going to use my education and get a job. Or I'm going to go to grad school. I'm going to do, right? And it's like, and unfortunately for a lot of black players, it's like, this is it. And that's what I don't like about NIL. It's like, yeah, I'm getting paid. No, you're not getting paid. You have the opportunity to use your name, image, or likeness to get paid.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's what the law is, what the rule is, right? But the reality is how do you leverage this experience? How do y'all leverage this? Doing this. Right? Because people get paid to do this kind of stuff. Right? Or people get academic credits to do this kind of stuff. Y'all should be getting academic credits for doing this. Right? This is not just a voluntary thing where y'all just get to promote the brand of Syracuse football. How about your individual academic pursuits, so that you're getting hands-on experience right now, being on camera and in front of a microphone that Newhouse students would die for. To have your platform,
think about it like that.
Right? And they're getting credit for it. They're getting academic credits for it, and they're going to graduate saying, "Oh, I did this. I had a podcast for X amount of years in school." That goes on a resume that they hand to someone at ESPN or someone at Discovery Network and say, "I've had on-air experience." Y'all have on-air experience. This should be part of your academics. This should be part of and that's the part that bothers me about how we have not been across the board, and I do blame folks at the NCAA for not having more imagination about where this whole NIL thing was going, where this whole business is going. It used to be that, like you look at that picture of the dome right there, right? There's about 40 academic courses in that picture.
That's facts, though.
Right, that some people might be studying in the classroom and don't recognize that you're in it. Y'all in an academic in a business laboratory every day of all the things that go into that. Everything from building the roof on the dome. You remember how, if you were here, that project took on its own. The Crane had its own website or its own Instagram account.
It did.
Right? And so there's all these different ways that the game is monetized, from all the telecommunications, all the things that you guys are doing here, to the field, to the branding, and then all the legal stuff and all the stuff that makes that game happen. And that's stuff that y'all should be studying in the classroom and should be recognizing, how do I leverage the fullness of this experience? Not just balling on the field, but how do you leverage all of it? And as we've been talking about, things have changed so much, and there's way more opportunities than ever before to leverage this experience. Yeah. So when you say, what are you doing after it? I will tell you right now that I started doing programs, talking in schools when I was a sophomore in college here with a program called Athletes Against Drunk Driving. I'm still doing that work today. I wrote a paper for a class, Professor Marshall Siegel, in 1984, and the title of the paper was Same Punch, Different Pay. And it was about the intersection of sports, entertainment, and violence. And it's the work I do today. Mm-hmm. And so I say to your question is, I didn't know exactly what I was going to do. The place I eventually went to work for, the Center for the Study of Sport and Society at Northeastern University, when I retired, didn't exist it barely existed when I was playing. And so there was a field that was just burgeoning and just emerging when I was playing. Just like right now, there's a whole bunch of them that are emerging, like crypto and all these other things, and all these emerging markets and emerging ideas that you all at the epicenter of, and we should be teaching you how to leverage that, because that's the future.
Yeah. So it's just, again, he's just, you got me ready to just rearrange my whole goal list right now.
He giving game right now.
You got me ready. I'm about to go rearrange my vision board.
Right now, bro. For real.
I'm about to go rewrite some goals down.
I got a question too. So, obviously, we 5-0, we have a bye, and then we have a big game, like you guys had. So, what's some things that, you can, tell to us and, some of our teammates that are going to be, tuning into the podcast, to finish out the rest of the season.
Yeah, you know what? I was talking to some fraternities last night, and I went to one fraternity party in 4 years, and it was during the bye week because I met this guy who was working in Manly, and he was vice president of the IFC, and he kept saying, "Why don't you go out?" I said, "Nah, I can't get in the madness."
You had any alcohol?
Huh?
Had any alcohol?
No, I didn't.
Okay. You trying to get that Heisman?
Okay.
You trying to get the Heisman?
I was in the
trying
mix.
to get the Heisman.
But I walked into this fraternity house, and I was like, "You got to be kidding me!" And the reason why I did it though, why I went, because he was giving me a hard time, is that I really wanted to take a little bit of time and get away
from the game.
And y'all been grinding since August, right? And I always say,
since May?
Since May, but since August. Oh well, maybe y'all probably a little different pace than we were. We were grinding since August. We were going 2 days. We were beating each other up. And so you take that time to get your mind right, to take care of you, maybe to find yourself again, right? Because it's been team. Do something for yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it's like it's like the old adage about on the plane, right? Put the oxygen on yourself before you can help other people, right? So get yourself right. Take a little bit of time for yourself. Take a deep breath and then pace. We pace this next 2 weeks, right? Because it's going to take you out of your rhythm a little bit, right? Not having to play next week, and so make sure that you pace over the next 2 weeks so that you're peaking at the right time. I would say even do something on Saturday together as a team during the time that you would play your game. Okay. There's a rhythm to our lives, to y'all's lives, not mine anymore. I'm watching game day when y'all get there. But there's a rhythm to your lives right now that is it's a steady rhythm. And you practice certain hours, you sleep certain hours, right? And then you peak. You want to peak, right? And everything that they're doing for you, I'm sure, is to make sure you peak at that hour.
Right.
So do something together on Saturday, and it could be not football related, but do something together so y'all are even peaking socially, right, with each other on Saturday. And this is just me saying it, to your question, how do you deal with that? And I would say the other thing is as best you can. And y'all gonna get this, and I don't know how you can avoid it. I really don't know how y'all avoid it. It was easier for us. It was easier for previous generations. But don't listen to the media for the next 2 weeks, because they're gonna be talking and speculating and whether or not y'all 22, 21, coaches poll, this poll, that thing. You're gonna have to hear about NC State from everybody else's perspective. do NC State from your perspective, and try to as best you can. But it's almost impossible nowadays to stay focused on what y'all handle y'all business.
Yeah, man. I just again, like everything you're saying, you drop so many gems on us today.
Giving game.
You definitely just I know, at least for me, you guys probably can relate too. It's just everything that is like what you cared about never wavered for you. Like it was like what was most important stood first. And I think in our society now, like even me, I struggle with that at times. Right? It's like, how do I make sure that what I'm doing is aligning with what I care about the most? Yeah. Especially like again, just with all the like social media and Twitter and everything. But so just for you, right? When you knew, okay, I'm done playing football. What was that transition like? Because I think for me, I was hurt at one point and I almost lost the game. So I had to really have those thoughts for myself, like, okay, what's going to be next? What was that for you when you knew, like, all right, I'm done playing this game?
It was actually a moment in a classroom with a bunch of little kids. Like I started doing programs during the off season when I was playing for the Eagles, and I was running programs in the off season on Long Island, and I knew that that's what I was going to do. Like I was going to continue doing that education work with young people on different social issues. And I remember these little kids, and I write about this in my book, these little kids were challenging me. I was playing in the CFL. I was probably like the 4th or 5th highest paid player in the CFL. And at the time, it was barely enough for me to pay rent. Right? And because it was a conversion to U.S. dollars, there was taxes in Canada, there was taxes here, right?
Yeah,
all those
my
things.
cousin playing the CFL.
Yeah, and all those things that you hear about $1 million contract, or if it was $1 million, it's really not $1 million. Right, because the IRS is gonna come for their right. Everybody's gonna come for their piece.
Everybody coming for their
Everybody's gonna come for their piece. So by the time you get that $1 million, it's really by 300, right? Because everybody's got their big, right? And so I wasn't making that much money. These little kids were like, "Well, how much money do you make?" And that's all they could think of. And so when we talk about your values as an athlete, your values in your work ethic, your values in what you believe that does not get compromised. When these little kids were asking me how much money I made. And football was never about money. I didn't play in the money era. Randall Cunningham, who was a starting quarterback in Philly, I remember getting my first game check, and my salary was like $80,000 or something like that. Randall signed $1 million contract. I saw his check in the elevator. I was like, didn't want to get off the elevator. Right? He showed me his game check. So it really wasn't about the money, although the money was there, but it wasn't. And so when these kids asked me about money, and they were like, "You make this much millions?" I'm like, "Nah," and they were like, "Psh." I was like, "Man, I got to make a decision. Do I want these kids to just see me as y'all are? Nowadays it's a little different because y'all have so much more exposure. I was like a 3-inch figurine on television that was interrupted by commercial every 30 minutes, right? And so that's all they saw, and I didn't have ability to, as y'all do, to craft an identity and express yourselves in different ways. And so for me, the moment that I knew I wanted to give it up was that. It was one of those moments with little kids that all they saw was where the business was going and not what it truly meant to be an athlete. Because I always say that people think of the iconic moments, the game, Saturday afternoon. I told the people yesterday, I said, those guys who played last night? They were in film study right now. Half of them are in the weight room, training room, they're in film study right now. They are not sitting back and go, "Oh, we 5-0. They are working right now. Nope. They are working. And so that, to me, was the thing that I always wanted people to know, is that that's what the game is not game day. That's the business. That's the business. The game is what y'all do every single day in preparation for the game.
For Saturday.
That's right.
For sure. And you have a book.
Yes.
Right? So can you talk a little bit about that?
It is. So the title is "You Throw Like a Girl." So when I retired, I went to Northeastern University, and I went there because of a guy named Richard Lapchick, whose father signed the first black player in the NBA in 1950. And so Richard's a white man doing work around racism in sport. So as I said, I was a black quarterback, right? And that's where I went, thinking I was going to continue that work. And I met this guy named Jackson Katz and started working with this guy who had just created a gender violence prevention program. And the whole idea of it was to get men to speak out about all forms of men's violence against women, and to have this conversation around masculinity and what it means to be a healthy and whole man. And I was 20. I have a chapter in the book titled 29. I was 29 years old the first time I heard anybody talk about those things. I knew about it. I'd seen violence in relationships when I was in high school and here, and but we never talked about it. And it was that silence that I always refer to as my greatest privilege, was not having to be engaged in the conversation. And so I was hooked immediately. As I always say, that Jackson asked me to use a privilege I didn't know I had, my silence around masculine and being a man, to use it to address a problem I didn't know was mine. And the problem that was mine is that men's violence against women is overwhelmingly male behavior. We call it a women's issue, but it's our stuff. And so that's the problem that is mine. That's my responsibility. It's like I say, racism is the responsibility of white people to correct.
Yeah.
Like, black people have been making a lot of noise about racism for a long time. It's not going to change until white people confront each other. And the same thing about men's violence against women. And here's where I am now. The subtitle of the book is The Blind Spot of Masculinity. And if my privilege is my silence, that's the blind spot to my growth. Ooh. And so part of what I'm doing, and what I'm doing on campus right now, is what I refer to as aspirational masculinity. Not what I want y'all to take out of who you are as men, what I want for you as men. And that was a piece, even with the team in '87. When we took that pledge to be alcohol free, it was like, what do I want for you? I don't just want you to not have alcohol. I want you to have this. I want you to have this undefeated season. I want you to have this win. I want you to have this love that we have for each other as men that has transcended those years that we talk every day. We got guys, we were texting this morning. And so when I talk about aspirational masculinity, I talk about having healthy, whole, loving. I want young men to live in awe of themselves and of each other, and that awe is authentic, whole, and evolving. Right, so that you're living your authentic self, you're living your whole self, your whole loving, caring, vulnerable self, and supporting each other in doing so, and that you're evolving. I'm 57 years old, man. I'm still figuring stuff out, right? You still learn. Think about when you came here as a first-year student and who you are now, right? You have evolved. You haven't just changed. You have evolved, right? And so how do we as men encourage that in a positive way, which is also part of the bigger conversation around sexual violence prevention, all that. But I actually think that is the bigger conversation that we as men need to have.
Yeah, for sure. You said something that would really hit home. You said women's something is because of men. I think, like you said, women's toxicity or something is because of what we do.
Of what we got going on.
Yeah, what we got going on. Yeah. Can you dive into that a little bit?
You mean the problems that women face?
Yeah, it's because of what men like.
It is, we're the ones committing the violence, right? Yeah. And so one of the things, when you start looking at violence prevention, if you're going to truly prevent it from happening, you have to understand that overwhelmingly it's male behavior. So you have to dive into what's going on with men and boys, right? And there's a feminist scholar named Bell Hooks who passed away actually last year. And she's the only person I quote in my book. And the quote is that the first act of violence that patriarchy asks of males is not violence against women, it's violence against ourselves. And if we don't do a good enough job of cutting off our emotional competency, right, sucking it up, man up. As little boys, we learn that, right? If we don't do that, then we'll enact rituals that do it for us, which is like hazing. And I say sports is one of them, right? Yeah. Like you man up, right? Yeah. And so we learn that. And our sport is the ultimate of that. I say ultimate, but you hear the same sort of language in golf, right? So we learn as guys, as boys, and this is sort of the tragic thing that when I talk about evolving, is that we learn as boys to ignore our feelings, suck it up, man up, right? Push on, push through, and then we learn to distrust them, because if we're not using them and practicing them and engaging with our feelings and our emotions and being honest about it and how we express to other people, then we begin to distrust it. Right, I'm not sure if this is the right time to say something to and then as you get older, you think you're not worthy of it. And I will tell you, as a 57-year-old man who's going through things in my own personal life, sometimes I think I'm not worthy of not just love, but of my full whole self.
That's real.
Of being able to express it, being able to share it, and have it be respected and heard, and so you hold back. Right, you don't share it, you don't express, and that's one of the most damaging things for us. I'll tell you that the subtitle of my book is The Blind Spot of Masculinity, and I said the blind spot is that we, our privilege keeps us silent and we don't have to engage. I had a list of guys. There were 33 guys on the list when my daughter asked me who these guys were, and there were 33 guys that I knew or played with in this game that were dead, and 6 of them were suicides, including Chris Gedney, who was a teammate, not a teammate, but was a friend here and worked here on campus, and so many guys that, I mean, I got 5, 6 guys I played ball with, my college roommate, a couple guys on that team who were gone, 5, 6 guys in the NFL, and I don't necessarily, one of the things that a lot of these guys didn't do, a lot of guys did, and some of the more famous suicides like Junior Seau and Andre Waters, Dave Dorson, a lot of these guys didn't ask for help. Yeah. And that's the thing that why I say we don't feel like we're deserving it, we don't worthy of it. We're supposed to suck it up, we're supposed to man up. No, you're supposed to say, I'm struggling, I'm hurting, I need help, 100%. And to be able to say that, and that's a strength. We don't consider that a strength, and that's why that quote by Bell Hooks is that's the first act of violence that men are expected is on ourselves to truly. And so I have to start there before I can say anything about violence against women, because we got to deal with our own stuff first, right? Yeah. And so hurt people, right? And so when we as men are ignoring who we are, we transfer that.
Yeah, on others.
Correct.
That's a big thing, and like not just in college football, but just in life in general, like like with men, like just just your mental, like
Yeah, look at us.
like your mental state, like it's crazy. Like in college, I can say, like speaking for myself, like that's really like a big thing, and that's not something that a lot of people like focus on. Like they put it in the shadows and behind, when that's something that really need to be like brought to the light and like talked about, because like you said, like men want to hide their emotions and not express themselves, and it doesn't always turn out to be the best thing for them.
That's facts. Yeah. And I think
I was going to say there's another layer that is expected of y'all, and we can dissect the race side of it, right? When black men are the most feared people on the planet, right? He didn't have a gun, but he had black skin. I was afraid, right? But there's that piece as black men, but there's also that piece as athletes, and people think that y'all. I mean, we are more aware now than ever before, head injuries and all that. But there's also that notion that y'all are impervious to pain, right? And we see you. I had a friend of mine at the game the other day. She had never been to a football game before. She's like, the uniforms, they look like stormtroopers, right? And if you think, and she had never been to a game before, so she was looking at the uniforms, and I said, well, the stormtroopers actually modeled after us, right? but if you think about the stormtroopers, they had no personality, right? They had no faith, they had no expressions, and very often for y'all, that's what people see. And there's this notion that you are not human beings under there. And we can start to own that as athletes, right? That I'm supposed to be this. I'm supposed to go out there and leave it all on the field, which you are supposed to. That's what we do.
For sure.
And you're going to do that. But to your point, you have to recognize that y'all are also human beings, and sweet, kind, loving human beings. And that's the other thing what I said before about y'all being intentional, because nobody outside here wants you to be that. They want you to kick North Carolina State's ass and not care, right? That's why fans are the worst, right? They want you to just kill them, disrespect them. You're like, wait, I've been watching them on film all week. They can ball out too, right?
So they're on scholarship too.
So I got mad. Yeah, they're on scholarship too, right? So I got respect for them. I remember when fans would say, "Oh, talk bad about a team, man. You should come watch film. They're pretty good."
Yeah, right? Nothing wrong with saying that either.
That's exactly right. You gotta respect them.
It comes in with respecting the game, like not just respecting them. It's just the game, like. Yeah. We're talented. Like, we do this, so you got to respect the man across from you.
Exactly.
I think hearing you say that is just so refreshing to hear, because, like how I was saying earlier, I think in the sport that we're in, like, just growing up, it's like you hear that all the time, be tough, like, suck it up, you know what I mean? Like, and I think even for me now, like, just with everything with this podcast and, us playing well, it's like you like you said earlier about taking time to just get away from it and just kind of, like, refine yourself again. I think that's just so important, because it's easy to get caught up in everything. Right, it's easy to get caught up in what the fans want and what everybody else wants. But like you said, just being intentional. And I think for me, again, it's just I done reevaluated all my all my goals and my wants, because like what you're saying is just so important. And I think what really hits home the most for me is like what you like just talking about, not caring so much about yourself and focus on what's best for the team. And ultimately, that's going to help you out. So, just just transitioning into, just the end of this interview, what pushes that? Like, what motivates you to have this kind of impact, for students, for athletes in today's world? Like, was this who you were on the team? Because obviously, like you said, you evolved. So, like, what pushed that now? Because obviously, that's what you're like pushing out there: impact, men, mental health, everything like of that nature. So,
and what people helped you just like to evolve? Like, what people like just played a part into you being the McPherson right now?
Yeah. So I mentioned a professor, Marshall Siegel. When I was in school, he was the first faculty who treated me like a student and not the football player. I was lucky enough to have a guy named Barry Wells who babysat me as a kid, who was a dean of students here. He was the associate dean of arts and sciences when I got here. My parents were comfortable with him, knew him. Like I said, he grew up across the street from my grandmother, and so I had great people here who helped steer me, and it was. It was a little bit like, when I was in school, 6 songs I used to listen to before every game. And
I got songs too.
Yeah.
Everybody got songs.
Everybody got the songs, right? And you would be surprised.
I ain't had the AirPods, though.
Right?
I had the Walk.
The Walkman.
Yeah, the Walkman.
Like cassettes.
Yeah. I don't know what that is, bro. What would you say, Walkman?
A Walkman. Yeah.
You don't know what a Walkman?
Put the CD in?
Yeah, it was like a cassette. There was no CDs. There was no CDs.
I think I know.
It was before CDs. I had 8-track, man. I'm old school. I'm for real old school.
I had the pagers. Y'all was trying bags.
Yeah. Let me
really
get to a payphone and call you back.
I watch old movies. I'm an old soul. I'm trying to tell y'all, for real, I'm really old soul. But
so 2 of the songs that I used to listen to, and I won't give you all right, but 2 of them were from the film Yentl, which is a Barbra Streisand film. Right now, you can imagine people think, and this is why I said about people thinking about football players. People think, oh man, you listening to something violent or rap or something, or that dang on trumpet song, whatever that is, man. Well, y'all got rid of that, man. Get something original. That's a Mets picture thing.
Got you.
Right? So, but it wasn't that. This film Yentl, and it's going to sound really funny. And there's some people who, if they know Barbra Streisand and they know the film Yentl, is about a little girl who her dad was a rabbi in Western Europe, and she knew the Bible because of her dad, but she was a girl. She wasn't allowed to study. And so when her dad died, people might be laughing. Her dad died, she cut her hair, put a hat on, and she faked like she was a boy to go to Hebrew school. And she was the most learned in the Hebrew. And it is a Barbra Streisand film. If you know anything about Barbra Streisand, she's always there's always some whimsical, love affair story embedded in it. But it's always, and it's a musical. Mm-hmm. Right? But the lyrics to the songs were all about things like, why have eyes that see and arms that reach unless you're meant to know there's something more? And it was all about this young girl or young woman who wasn't allowed to study the Bible just because she was a woman. I wasn't allowed to play quarterback just because I was black, right? And so I identified with the struggle that's in the lyrics, right? Mm-hmm. And so when you ask me about where does that come from, I was not the person that so many people thought I was from the outside. They saw this football player, they saw this quarterback, they saw this outspoken guy talking about race and all that kind of stuff. And I was still trying to figure out so many things. And so the songs that I used to listen to really don't, if you said, whose playlist is this, you wouldn't think it was the quarterback of the football team, right, that went undefeated. And so because of that, I've had a greater sensitivity to being aware of everyone's identity and who you truly are. And so when I heard this guy, Jackson Cass, talking about men's violence against women, I know that I represented for a lot of people, especially young men and young black men, I represented this narrow understanding of iconic masculinity. I realized I had to debunk that, right? Because I would not be being true to myself if I was not saying that's not what being a man is. And we're living this narrative that leads to violence. It leads to violence to ourselves. Yeah. Leads to violence towards others. It leads to a lot of depression and a whole host of other issues that we're not addressing as men. And because of my outward profile, it was incumbent upon me. I felt it immediately when I met this guy Jackson, that this is the work that I need to do.
Wow. I know we all got his little brother, your little brother. We all got younger athletes that we know that's gonna look up to us, and as we look up to you, they're gonna look up to you also. And just as we get this game, keep on going. So, can you give us like some advice to let them know, like just when they get older and get to our position, just how they can just keep on going and have a great mindset in the sport.
Yeah, and I think it's a little bit of everything that we've been talking about is don't see your identity narrowed by being an athlete. That's just one part of who you are. And also to develop, no matter what it is, to develop other interests, because one, like you said, taking time away from the game and all that is to expand your understanding of yourself. Allow yourself that latitude of your interests, not just football, whether it's music or art or mathematics or whatever it is, to see all those other opportunities, right? All podcasts, right? Whatever that is, so that you can leverage this opportunity in your life.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I think for especially for young boys, is that we live by this really narrow understanding. I call it narrow masculinity. This really narrow understanding of what we're supposed to be: tough, strong. We also have to be recognized, and I would say to y'all to be explicit and intentional that we are also loving and caring and emotional and vulnerable, and to be able to say those things out loud and model that for younger men, so that they know that there are more options out there than just being a baller.
100%, yeah.
You know, Mr. McPherson.
Nah, you call me Don.
We really just appreciate you for just hopping
Absolutely.
on our podcast. You know, you definitely dropped some gems again.
He mob now.
Yeah, you mob. They was mob back then. Mob reincarnated. And you definitely just gave us so much knowledge today that I think we're not even going to use for the season before our lifetime.
Yeah.
And, you know, we really just appreciate you, and, you know, definitely going to want to keep in touch with you, off of this. And, you know, we just appreciate, you know, like your time spent with us today, and just thank you for real.
My pleasure. Absolutely. Anytime. And I mean this sincerely. Anytime.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Appreciate you.